Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
Hello and welcome to the 46th episode. My name is Ryan Blake. I'm the founder and director of Extreme Sports Performance, as well as the host of this show. In this episode, we're talking to Simon Olney. Simon is a professional triathlon coach who specialises in Ironman and founder of Faison Triathlon. We discuss many things, including triathlon popularity and mental health benefits, preparing for an Ironman, training tips, triathlon preparation and support network, balancing sports and avoiding addiction, nutrition trends and nutrition advancements, Ironman performance strategies, and much, much more. I really enjoyed recording this episode with Simon. Hope you enjoy listening to it. Here we go. Simon, welcome to the Extreme Sports Performance podcast. It is a pleasure to have you on the show. Please can you start by telling everyone who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks for having me. So I'm a triathlon coach by trade, a triathlon coach who specializes more towards the Ironman side of things. Help people with lots of sort of shorter goals, but generally my standard client is somebody comes to me and says, look, I've got an Ironman in 6, 9, 12 months time. Can you help me prepare? I started coaching back in 2016, so I've been doing it for around about 8 years now.
Amazing. So would you be able to clarify exactly what the word Ironman means? Because I know it's used a lot by people, but I'm not entirely sure they know exactly what the definition is.
So I think the first thing to point out is that Ironman is a company. It is also the name of the distance which they created, but by and large, they are a company who've done a fantastic job with their marketing. And so we generally refer to the Ironman distance as simply being an Ironman. So the distance of their full distance event is, do you want me to go through it in miles or kilometers? You know what? I'll do both, just in case listeners are,
Please do. We've got listeners in the UK and also across the other side of the Atlantic and Pacific. So that would be really helpful.
There we go. So to start with, you do an open water swim. So that's a swim in a lake, a sea, a river, sometimes a canal, anything except a pool, basically. And you swim for either it's 3,800 meters, or that's 2.4 miles. Okay, so you're already looking. Most people are going to be taking at least an hour to take that on, and the swim is the discipline which gives most people the cold feet, if you pardon the pun, given the usual water temperature. Because they never really learn to swim properly. For them, swimming involves swimming one length, feeling exhausted by the end and thinking, how on earth would I be able to keep doing that for 90 minutes? So that's kind of the scariest discipline in many ways. It doesn't necessarily get much easier as you go on, though. So next up, we have sort of the cycle section, which is 180 kilometers, otherwise known as 112 miles. Okay, so this is a really long day out on the bike. Now, a lot of road cyclists dream of doing 100 miles one day. So to squeeze in a 112-mile ride in the middle of an event, not always on the flattest terrain either. There are definitely some courses out there that get quite mountainous, as well as some that are pancake flat. Lots of different races out there for lots of different challenges, lots of different people. But that is sort of the real meat and potatoes is the bike. It's where most people are going to be spending most of their time. And then the finish is just a little marathon. That's all. just 26.2 miles, 42.2 kilometers. Yeah, you climb off the bike, already very tired. You put your running shoes on, you just go out and crush a marathon.
So that is the full distance for an Ironman.
That is a full distance. If you want to do the half distance, that is 1.2 miles or 1900 meters in the swim. Then you have a 56-mile or 90-kilometer bike, followed by only a half marathon at the end.
So am I right in thinking that the half distance has become a bit more popular since COVID, and that tends to be what people do, and can sometimes be a bit misunderstood or miscommunicated when people say Ironman. They might either think it's the full distance and or just the half distance.
Yeah, so I get lots of people will email me saying I'm training for Ironman, and then they talk about the half distance that they're doing.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, Ironman is a company more than it is a distance, and the distance is called the Ironman 70.3, or a middle distance, or a half distance if you are doing a non-Ironman branded event. For every Ironman event out there, there are about sort of 5 or 6 non-branded Ironman events, which are cheaper. The roads are normally open to traffic. You don't have quite the same amount of support. But the Ironman as a company, they really are the sort of the pinnacle of sort of race organization for the sort of the middle of the longer distance. And yeah, the 70.3 has definitely, if you look at the numbers, just the simple hard numbers that Ironman put out, the half is definitely the more popular distance at the moment. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think that coming out of COVID, we have sort of almost a new generation of triathletes, people who discovered the sport during the pandemic, and they didn't really get their first race in until 2022. And these are people who might build up, and the full distance Ironman might overtake the half in popularity, or you know what, it might actually sort of stay where it is. I think another reason is that some very experienced Ironman athletes in the pandemic, as we all did, sort of took stock of our lives a little bit. And we had a thought, hang on, so what am I doing? You know, is this, you know, how am I spending my time, especially when we came out of lockdown? I think some very dedicated Ironman athletes thought to themselves, do I really want to spend 6, 7, it's a 5 hour ride, but either side of it, you know, do I really want to spend 6, 7 hours every Sunday riding my bike? Or do I switch and do the half distance where it's probably only going to be 3 or 4? And I think the half offers a much better work-life balance, not work-life, training life balance. You know, Ironman shouldn't be a second job. It offers a much better balance. And as well, it's also a more accessible distance. You know, the Ironman sort of slogan is anything is possible. I mean, I wouldn't go quite that far, but I'd say that for most people, a 70.3 is going to be well within their reach if they really want to train for it. But Ironman, by the time you're looking at that distance, again, the vast majority of people can. But for some people, such as you're looking after some kids of your own at the moment, for you, like a full Ironman would just be out of the question. You just go, there is no way I have time for that.
Yeah, sure thing. So that really segues nicely to my next question, which is that why, or is that one of the reasons why the sport's becoming more and more popular? It being that half distance now being kind of more fashionable or more well known, particularly with corporate athletes.
Yeah, I mean, triathlon, there was a big boom in 2012. And then we kind of, we got a lot busier, a lot bigger. All these race organizers started popping up. And then obviously, like anything, that started to lose steam a little bit as we got towards sort of 2018, 2019. Then COVID meant a lot of race organizers went under. But things are continuing to pick back up again, as I said, because people discovered cycling, running. These are sports that they could do during lockdown because they were solo sports.
Yeah.
They couldn't necessarily go and play five-a-side, but they could buy a bike and a turbo trainer. We all remember how hard those was to get hold of in spring 2020. And they could train in their own space. And this became you know what, actually, I'm quite getting into this. It's weird. The indoor cycling software saw a massive boom And endurance sport in general has got more popular. When you talking about like corporate athletes, why it appeals to people from that world? I mean, there are a few reasons. First of all, is that Ironman's not the cheapest sport. It has to be said. You are looking at least £500 if you want to do an official Ironman branded event just for your entry fee to get into the race. I'm not saying that's overpriced when you look at the amount that they put on the show, that they close the roads. They really do put on a fantastic event, but it's not especially accessible when you got to pay £500 and then the bike and then the pool fees and the wetsuit and everything else that comes with that. So I think there's an element of that. Another element that I think it makes it appeal to sort of corporate athletes, and well, it's a general thing, but it's the old midlife crisis. So we go to school, we go to college, we go to university, we get the qualifications, we start on this journey of our career, we make our way up the ladder, we meet someone, maybe start a family. And as these people who've got, more disposable income than others, they start to achieve their career goals and they start to get to a point where they go, actually, you know what? This is what I've been aiming for. And now I'm here. What do I do? I've
Yeah,
got the house. I've got the husband or the wife. I've got kids that I love. And I kind of feel a bit lost. Some people go out and buy a Porsche. Other people will say, actually, you know what? Rather than trying to just sort of spend my way out of this, I'm going to find a new sense of purpose. And if you're looking for a new sense of purpose, training for any triathlon, but especially an Ironman, is a
yeah,
fantastic way of refinding that kind of that passion, that drive that a lot of people, as they get further into their career, they can start to lose some of that a little bit, where they actually get to a place where they're a bit more comfortable. Um, and they want to stop swimming with the sharks quite so much, and they go, you know
yeah,
what, actually, I want to work on myself.
mhm,
And yeah, I think it's like, as far as self-development goes, I couldn't think of a better sport. When I did my first event and I crossed that finish line, it changed me forever.
yeah,
My self-confidence just sort of shot up.
mhm,
Um, it was, yeah, it sounds really cheesy, but it was a life-changing experience for me. And I think a lot of people see this. Ironman are very good at marketing this, the idea of becoming an Ironman, something you can brag about for the rest of your life. A lot of people go, yeah, I want some of that.
yeah, sure. I can completely understand that from my own experience. Um, Becoming a parent for the first time, turning 40 recently, um, I have found myself on a bike a lot more than I have been before, and it is very fulfilling. The thing for me personally that it creates more of is mindfulness and
Mm.
just headspace, just being by yourself and not leaving all your stresses behind you until you get back.
The
Um,
people talk, sorry, go on.
no, that was all I was going to say. Yeah.
People talk about the benefits of exercise and mental health, and
Mhm,
like the benefits are massive and they're well documented. A lot of people talk about how lifting really helps them. And it
mhm,
absolutely does. But if I go into a gym, I go, right, okay, what's free? Okay, well, that's free over there, so I'll start with that. And then somebody's waiting to use that bench, or actually somebody's on the assisted pull-up machine that you're hoping to use, or you don't quite have space to do the Olympic lift that you were hoping to. And you do find yourself in a space with other people trying to
mhm,
work around other people.
yeah,
And yes, when you are there, like lifting that huge weight off the floor, makes you feel great. But as for for mindfulness, for like being relaxed, personally, at least, I've found that being in a commercial gym, it isn't necessarily, a space where I can really sort of relax into myself. But when I'm out there running on a trail and there's nobody else in sight, and I'm just keeping my pace, I've got an audio book that I'm listening to, and the miles just fly on by. Like there's
yeah,
nothing that comes close to that.
yeah, absolutely. So thanks for sharing that. That's really interesting. And what would you say for our listeners who are thinking about this or have been thinking about this for a while? What's the minimum in terms of training and equipment that they need to do or have before they even consider doing an Ironman?
So you hear stories about people who go from nothing to Ironman within 6 months.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Something that I really believe in is rather than creating athletes who can say they did an Ironman once, nobody wants to be that boring person who keeps rattling on about the time they did that event or something. I want to create sort of lifelong athletes. People who actually really develop a love for the sport. And it breaks my heart every time I see on Facebook somebody posting something saying, I've completed my Ironman, so I'm selling my bike. And this is a bike they paid about 8 grand for, and they're selling it off for it's like 3 grand or something. And it just, it's of course, everybody's in the sport for different reasons. Try not to judge. But I think that if somebody comes from very little to Ironman within 6 months,
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18 plus.
it can be done, but it will take over your life and it won't necessarily be the most enjoyable thing. And it may well leave a black hole in your life afterwards, because you'll have this real sense of purpose and sense of drive. But because you had a very troubled relationship with the training because it took your life over, I definitely try to advocate people take a longer term approach to it. All depends on somebody's level of base fitness as well. If somebody has been playing rugby or football a lot, or they were a rower, if somebody has some athleticism, then that's going to really help them. When I came into the sport, I had very little athleticism. I mean, I'm a relatively light guy, so naturally I was better suited to certain aspects than people who might be heavier. So I had a definite leg up there. But I started in sort of 2012, and I hadn't really done any running since school in 2003. So, I really had no athletic background. I could do a bit of heads up breaststroke, and I enjoyed riding my dad's mountain bike around the hard packed trails. So I really had sort of very little background. I chose to take the long road, and I didn't actually complete my first full Ironman until 2019. So that's about 5, 6 years of training to get me up to the Ironman. Again, you can do it in less time. For me, triathlon was the sport rather than Ironman. I wasn't really drawn in by the whole Ironman thing like some people are. But I think the longer that you leave it, it's much more engaging and fun to do a sprint triathlon, do 2 or 3 of those, get faster, then go to another distance, see yourselves get faster at those, get to the middle distance, get used to the nutritional challenges that come with that, and the pacing. And then when you move up to do an Ironman, you can do it in closer to sort of 11, 12 hours rather than sort of desperately trying to drag yourself around and hoping you're going to finish in under 17. So again, it all depends on what you want to do with the sport.
Yeah, sure.
But I'd say, if you have a good level of base fitness, a year is probably a comfortable time to do that. Anything much less than sort of 7, 8 months, and you are, running sort of quite close. But again, it depends on somebody's background. If they run marathons, if they're already a really experienced road cyclist, then they should be absolutely fine. But I would say, sort of rather than umming and ahhing over this, if somebody has completed an Olympic triathlon, I'd say, and they enjoyed it and they felt relatively good, I think at that point you can start thinking, okay, I think I feel ready to step up next year. And for that next year, I'd say do a half distance as early as you can in the spring to get ready for an Ironman later in the year.
Brilliant. No, that's great advice. Thank you very much for sharing that. So, with the athletes that you've competed with and the athletes that you now train, this is a two-folded question. What do you A, see them do really well, and B, what do you also see them not do well?
Yeah. So things that triathletes are really good at is having a high level of motivation and drive, at least when they start. Okay. A lot of people starting triathlon is like open this amazing book, and they suddenly go on this wonderful journey. They get so sucked in, and they are not afraid to put the hours in. They are pushing themselves. They're not afraid to push themselves hard. They are all in. They've literally got all their chips, and they've gone, "I'm going to be an Ironman." And yeah, and that you do need a bit of that mindset to get yourself going in the sport. You do need that drive. You do need that passion, because it's going to take up so much of your life. You can't go into it in a half-hearted, oh well, I guess I'll try it and see how it goes. Because not only looking at sort of the financial costs involved, but also the costs that can come to your friendships, your relationship. Try not to make it affect work too much. But um, if you are in a relationship and you're going to disappear out and be training for 15 hours in a week, time that you could be spent with them, that's going to cause some level of friction. So you do need to really be driven. Having an understanding partner is so important with this. And to have that really strong why, which is what a lot of people have. It could be that they've lost a friend to cardiovascular disease. It could be they're inspired by watching the World Championships in Kona on the telly, which is on later day actually, and all sorts of different reasons that people in the sport, self-confidence, mental health, all of that. Now, unfortunately, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because to answer the second question about what it is that people don't do so well, it can be answered probably one word, and it's a very boring word, but it's discipline.
Mhm.
People, they go, right, so I'm training for a triathlon. So I need to get in all these swims, all these cycles, all these runs, strength work. They're going to spend a lot of time researching the sport as well. And they go too hard too soon. Now, if you have an Ironman, like a lot of people be inspired by seeing an Ironman, spectating one, and they'll sign up when the entries go live a few days later, and they've got 12 months. And they immediately start putting in 12-hour training weeks. You think, hang on a minute, mate. You need to keep this momentum. If we're looking at the principles of progressive overload, where we want to get faster and go longer, most weeks, obviously we have recovery weeks, periods, tapers, all of that. Generally speaking, we want to increase the training as we go. They're not very good at not putting in all the hours all the time at once. And they're also it can be very difficult getting someone to think about, okay, I need you to go out and run slowly. I need to go out and cycle slowly. I think, no, I'm doing an Ironman. I need to go as hard as I can. And you go, well, this Ironman, if we say for the sake of argument, it's going to take you 17 hours, can you even walk for 17 hours at the moment? Think about what your race pace is going to be. Think about what race day is going to look like. And I can sit there and I can wax lyrical about the importance of the aerobic system, sort of zone two, we talk about a lot these days, all of this kind of this long, steady training that's going to be really important to just help you keep moving. But they have an itch that they want to scratch. And when you first start out, you see yourself improve so rapidly. You go from running a 30-minute, 40-minute 5K, and within sort of 2 or 3 months, that could be down to 25 minutes, just simply by virtue of having some structure to your training. The fact you've actually started to enjoy exercise for the first time in your life, and suddenly everything is fantastic, and you just want to go hard. So it results in one of two things, often both, burnout or injury. The burnout is surprisingly popular. I have had a chat with numerous athletes. I asked them, well, how did your race go? Because I knew they were training. I'd sort of been running some sessions that they'd come along to. And they said, you know what? I got there. I just didn't want to be there. They said, and I'm not that happy with the result, but there was no part of me that was excited to be there. And that's a real symptom of overtraining, where somebody just loses what was once this really burning, passionate desire for something. They flew too close to the sun, and they lost it. Their body starts shutting down on them. Their body's saying, "I need rest. I need rest." And there's a part of them going, "But I can't miss this swim session. But I've got to get out for this last long bike." So having that, like self-reflection, asking yourself, okay, I do need to go easy. Do I really have it in me through this interval session today? It's going to massively reduce your risk of injury. If you start going out and running sprints or at least very hard efforts, sort of 2, 3 minute efforts on legs that are smashed from a bike ride, guess what? Your chance of injury is going to skyrocket.
Yeah,
If
sure.
you go and you say, oh well, I did a 90-minute long run last week, I'm going to do a 2 hour long run this week. Guess what? That's such a shock to the system that you're going to really struggle. Like, yeah, but I've got an Ironman in 9 months. I need to start training. And he goes, look, the really hard bit of Ironman training, it comes with about 3, maybe 4 months to go. The rest of it, we're just trying to get the body ready so that when I batter someone with a relentless set of workouts, 3, 4 months out, they can absorb those workouts and they can go 4 hour bike ride, done, 2.5 hour run, done. What's next?
Yeah, brilliant.
And you do that by laying the foundations a long way out.
It's all about building the pyramid in the right order, isn't it? And that it's common in every sport. And I see it more and more common now in youth sports as well, for
Yeah,
lots of reasons, for late developers trying to catch up with their peers, for pushy parents. Um, it's sometimes done upside down, and if you build the pyramid with the pointy end on the floor,
yeah,
it's eventually going to fall over. And I can imagine it's very similar to this. Um,
absolutely.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
so, on the subject of balance, obviously there's a very fine balance between getting the physical aligned with the mental. What would you say, like, the biggest mental challenges are for people doing Ironmans, is particularly when it comes to the race day? They've done all their training, and it's ready. They're ready to go. What have you seen in your experience, or typically still see today?
So the self-doubt is a big part, and that's
Right.
completely natural. If you're taking on a distance like an Ironman, the DNF rate at some races can be as high as 25%. Those are often the hillier events. And the professional field, about 50% will DNF on a regular rate because they are having a bad day and it's just not worth them pushing through a marathon to finish in 12th and get no money. So it's never a given that you're going to finish. A sprint, I know I can drag myself around a sprint as long as I don't break anything. But the Ironman, you really have to sort of respect the distance. And it can feel quite overwhelming, especially when you think, hang on, I've spent the last 10 months of my life building up to today. And I really hope it all goes to plan. The other thing is it's coping when things go wrong. If you're going to be out there, the world record for the Ironman sits around it's around about 7 hours for the sake of argument. People could argue either way. There's no true world record, but the very fastest in the world, it's going to start with a 7. Over 7 hours, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Things are going to happen to you which don't go to plan. Whether it's your digestive system isn't absorbing the calories like it normally is, whether it is that a bottle fell off your bike and now you're missing your carbohydrate mix, whether it's you getting kicked in the chest in the swim, whether it's you starting to get the beginnings of cramp on the run. There is so much that can happen which may or may not be your fault. Of course, puncture on the bike, somebody crashing in front of you. The list is absolutely, is endless. There are dozens of things that could go wrong in the day. And it's being able to deal with those, and it's being able to move on and not letting it get inside your head. It's, somebody comes out the water, they look at because you don't know what pace you're doing in the swim, of course. They look at their time on the watch and think, oh my God, that was so slow. I really suck. I can't believe I swam that slow. But guess what? It was a slow day. There were strong currents. Everybody was swimming 2, 3 minutes slower than they normally are. So park that and go, the swim's happened. I've still got all these hours of racing ahead of me. I need to get my head down and I need to try to focus. The amount of people who have a flawless day on an Ironman, I'd say zero. You have people who come very close to a perfect day. Some professionals where it's their life and they got things really dialed in. If you look at the performance of Lucy Charles Barkley at the World Championships last year, she led from the start of the swim all the way to the end of the marathon. But she had raging Achilles pain for the whole marathon. So whilst the execution appeared to be flawless from where we are, there was no doubt, so much doubt. I don't know if you've I'm going to make the assumption that you haven't led many cycle races in your time, but um, when you are at the front of a bike race, you start hearing things that you're convinced that your competitor's coming up behind you,
Yeah.
and the mind games, even at that point, is yeah, it's really tough. So loads and loads of different things that can go wrong in the day, and it's having a toolkit for that. It's when you get a puncture, it's being able to pull over to the side of the road and get that change within 5 minutes and get going without panicking, without rushing, without accidentally puncturing your other tube. And the way that you develop this toolkit to solve these problems is you do a boatload of training.
Yeah.
If you go out on your bike and you learn what happens when you get a pinch flat, you learn what happens if your tubeless tire doesn't seal. You learn what happens if your handlebars start going a little bit loose. You learn what happens how to fix your gears if you get stuck in one ring or another. These are all skills that you need to develop in training so that when it happens in the race, you go, this, and you go into autopilot and you know how to fix it.
Yeah, sure.
And the riding outside actually is a really big part of that. Riding indoors,
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
it's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough for efficiency, the ability to do intervals. But you have a lot of people who just don't do enough riding outside. And then they go out and they race and their aero bars come loose because they didn't tighten them up well enough when they're rebuilding the bike off the plane and they can't use their aero bars and they've lost 10 minutes. So yeah, it's developing that toolkit just from weeks, months, years, decades of swimming, cycling, and running.
Sure thing. It's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. I've definitely learned a few golden nuggets there myself. A quote that we often use with athletes that we work with is not looking to try and rise to your level of performance, but fall to your level of preparation, which makes a lot of sense, specifically in this instance. Like if you don't really experience those things when you're, doing the work, and experiencing them on the day, on the race day is going to be overwhelming and very difficult to manage. So
You know about
makes,
the 6 Ps, don't you?
go on, remind our listeners.
Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Absolutely, yeah, it really does, and that's true. I've been guilty of that when I was a competitive athlete back in the day, and I still see it all the time now. It's for whatever reason, whether it's a lack of people being time poor or ignorance or just overwhelming arrogance, which does still occur. And people think, "No, it'll be fine. I'll just get through it." With little or no preparation, and then surprisingly enough, the wheels fall off and it all comes crashing down around them.
You do see a lot of people after you spent enough time in triathlon, you start to get an eye for people, from their body language, from as harsh as it sounds, the kit they're using and things. And you see them at the start of an Ironman, and you just think, I don't fancy their chances. Sometimes you can just see it in their eyes.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's because their tires aren't fully pumped up. But sort of things like anything, I can see you thought to yourself, I'm just going to sign up and just drag my way around this on the day.
yeah,
Of course, there may be issues which are preventing them from training as much as they can, but
of
obviously,
course, yeah,
paid their money, they've come here, and they think they can just blag it. They can just
yeah,
get through it. And like I said at the start, sprint triathlon, yeah, you'll probably be fine. If you as long as you can swim and ride a bike without crashing, get stuck in. But Ironman, you really need to respect it. It's not something that you can simply graduate to after you've done a marathon. Oh, I've done a marathon. Next up is an Ironman. I'll do that next year. It's you really do need to take it seriously. You need to respect it. I think
yeah, of course,
that phrase of respecting the distance comes up quite a lot.
yeah, of course. So you've already alluded to how quickly an elite athlete could complete an Ironman. What does it actually take for someone to be world class at this?
Um, Good genes, I think is my first answer. Now
Yeah,
it's something that it's true in any sport, but there are I mean, that's sort of sports like football. You can teach most people to improve their footwork. Obviously, some people are going to be naturals at it more than others. When it comes to triathlon, if you have completely the wrong like body type, if you have medical issues that are going to help, prevent you from really being within the top 0.0001% aerobically fittest people in the world, then it's a bit of a non-starter, unfortunately.
sure thing.
Having that, you do need a good foundation to be right at the very top. You also need a lot of time. There's no getting around that. It is a little bit like one of those sports where not that the person who puts in the most hours is going to win the race, but it's not too far off either. Um, it's the ability to train those hours, it's the ability to recover from that training, uh, and the ability to train smart as well, not to get yourself so bogged down in sort of the details and to see
Mhm.
the wider picture, to have that again, that word, that discipline, to be able to go out there and to do a lot of your workouts at an easier pace, but also the ability to really hurt yourself
Yeah,
during some event, during those really hard sessions, to really push yourself hard. I'm not saying you need to have a bucket next to your turbo trainer at all times in case you spew. Um, but the ability to really bury yourself and push yourself hard. Um, Strong support network, I think, is also I've mentioned it once before. I cannot explain how important that support network is if you want to, whether you want to be a professional, whether you have a time goal of going under sort of 11 or 12 hours, if you really want to dedicate yourself to the sport, you need that strong support network around you. It's not something you can do on your own.
yeah, sure thing. We've had the pleasure of working with world class, world champion, Olympic medalist athletes over the last 20 years, and we see a common trait, and they are just the kind of characteristics of those athletes. That they are very humble. They're incredibly well prepared. They know exactly what it is they need to do for them, and they have got almost unshakable focus when it comes to the quality of getting the work done. So I think that correlates really nicely to what you said. Even though it's a slightly different scenario or context, I think they do interlink.
Generally, that again, like being humble, there are a few triathletes
Yeah.
out there who've definitely got a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I don't know, you don't you know the sport.
Yeah.
But if you look at the finish line of an event and the way that first place hugs second place, and second place congratulates first on their win, and that you can see there's this real strong community around it, and you do see a lot of Ironman athletes out there who take themselves far too seriously. You can tell that is their entire personality and their entire sense of worth is based on how they go at the next Ironman.
Yeah.
And I don't think it does them a lot of good. I do think that they do sort of hamper their own enjoyment of the sport by having that attitude, and that by sort of not taking things too seriously. I think having a bit of fun with it, keeping it a bit social, not becoming a hermit who just spends 12 hours a week on the indoor turbo trainer in their garage.
You can't afford to get in your own way by taking yourself too seriously with this. I can imagine.
We started doing this for fun. Come on, guys. You know.
Sure. You've got to enjoy it. Otherwise, really, what is the point? If it's not enjoyable, so I can imagine there'd be some training sessions where you're questioning your life choices, but
oh yes,
ultimately, it still needs to be, giving you fulfillment, and otherwise, it's possibly a decision that you've not considered strongly enough.
There is an issue within endurance sport. Again, with all sports, I think endurance sports especially guilty of it, is drawing people towards exercise addiction.
Yeah.
Where they feel that they have to go out and they have to do these sessions, and it transcends being fun and that sense of self-worth towards a point of they feel they have to do this. And then if they get injured, if they get ill, if anything that happens that would make most people stop and go, you know what, the smart thing here is to step back and slow down the training. They can't. They've just got to go harder. They've just got to go further. They're not eating enough. They're not fueling their training properly because it's all about their sense of self-worth. It's all about how many hours they're putting in. And I think that if you do find yourself with that kind of, if any of your listeners are finding themselves with that kind of mindset, it's just stop for a moment and think, is this what I got into the sport for? Is this actually bringing me enjoyment? Can I afford to keep going like this? How long does this go on for? And to just be kind to themselves as well, and if they do think that they've lost that why and they do think that it is taking over their life, then have a conversation with someone who can help you, whether that's a registered therapist, whether it's your other half, whether it's your friends, training partners, all of that. Don't be afraid to seek out a little bit of help if you feel that Ironman has taken over your life.
Great advice. It's I think men particularly are guilty of not doing that a lot, and it's totally okay to ask for help if you struggle.
Yeah.
So thanks for reminding everyone about that, because it's really important. Do you see any change happening to the sport in the next 5 to 10 years? Do you see it keep staying fairly similar to how it is now?
So I think what really interesting for me to see, especially in the next 2 to 3 years, is whether we have this move back to the full Ironman distance. Obviously, the 70.3, the half distance is very popular at the moment. Be interesting to see whether the lure of the full distance either takes people who've only ever done halves before and they think, I just want to step up, I just want to do that, like really invest in the full distance, or whether it's people who stepped away from the full distance following COVID, whether they think, you know what, I want to go back, and I want to get back to doing those kinds of distances again. Whether it's people who get later in life who then retire and they've got more time for training. I'd be interested to see if the numbers start to reverse the way they were before COVID. Bike tech hasn't really changed an enormous amount. We have, of course, actually had running shoes. The carbon plated shoes have really sort of mixed things up in the last 3-4 years that they've been around. It might even be longer than that now. Bike tech hasn't there've been no major developments with bike tech. But nutrition has really moved on as a field within triathlon. So when I first started doing my coaching certifications back in 2016, we were told 60 grams of carbohydrate an hour is what athletes should be taking on.
Yeah.
Um, and that is not terrible advice, but it does mean that that's sort of roughly what the body needs. If you miss a feed for any reason, or you can't stomach a feed, if a bottle comes off your bike, if you feel really nauseous, if you never want to look at another energy gel again in your life, and you then can't take on that, then you very rapidly start to find yourself like falling off this cliff because you were just sort of riding the crest of that wave, and
Yeah,
suddenly it's
sure.
broken, and you find yourself in a lot of trouble. Now, when you have athletes who take, there's been sort of a bit of research really, both in the lab and also just anecdotal from athletes and coaches, that the athletes who are actually now taking on more carbohydrate, not only are they less prone to falling off of this cliff, but they're also performing better.
Yeah.
The athletes, whereas before we were talking about 60 grams of carbohydrate an hour, that's the magic number. Now athletes are taking on, like especially pros, 90, 100, 120 grams an hour in some cases. Christian Blumenfeld, who is the Olympic champion, he's also 70.3 world champion, Ironman world champion previously, doesn't hold any of those titles currently, but he's been around the block. He says that Ironman nutrition, I might be paraphrasing this, so apologies to Christian, but he said Ironman nutrition is easy. You just eat as much as you can without throwing up.
Yeah.
And there is some logic there. Because you are just building yourself a buffer, you're building yourself a cushion. But to be able to take on that kind of 90, 100 grams an hour, you have to train your gut to be able to take that on. And that's something that I encourage athletes to do, is go, okay, so I know that if we have 20 grams of carbohydrate in a gel, taking 3 of those on an hour will get us to those 60 grams. But I want you to have a carb mix as well in your bottles that you're going to be taking from, I wouldn't necessarily recommend somebody has 3 gels an hour, but say sort of a gel, an energy bar, maybe some real food. But, we're trying to push those numbers up. And you want to try doing that in training. Okay, you can stomach 60, let's try 70. Let's try adding a little bit more and trying to find that sweet spot for that athlete. It's going to be different for all sorts of people. And you start that process 6 months out from race day. It's not something you do 2 months out. So the advancement in our understanding of nutrition, and I'm interested to see how that will affect the times, the performances in the sport. If everybody is now taking on a lot more nutrition, and we're getting more products on the market which contain higher concentrations of carbohydrate that were previously considered to be unpalatable, or they found new ways to optimize the pathways to be able to get that glycogen moving.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Then I think we could see some really exciting things happening. As well, our understanding of electrolytes and salt replacement during exercise, something that's really improved over the years. These new products are coming out, and for like a lot of athletes, nutrition is the limiter. It's how many calories they can take in. It's very rare that somebody will fail to finish an Ironman simply because they weren't aerobically fit enough. Often it is due to sort of that general sort of lack of preparation, understanding of the bike, hours on the bike, or it is nutrition, or it's cramp, or often it's something along those lines that trips people up. I have heard stories of athletes who've had to go into, with apologies to Anna, if you're eating your dinner whilst listening to this, pause now. But athletes who've been on the run course and they've felt so unwell, they've had to go into the porta toilets and make themselves throw up just to clear their stomach out because it was so backed up. That's not something you ever want to have to do, let alone in a portable toilet.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It really is. It's a huge limiter, and it's something not enough people take seriously enough in their training.
Yeah.
They don't practice taking on that fuel for that long. And I'm not suggesting people go out and do 17-hour training, training blocks, because you're always going to be going into the unknown into an Ironman marathon. But do those really long sessions, see how the body reacts, see what your body can stomach. Well, now a lot more people are front loading the nutrition on the bike. So they're taking on that 100, 110 grams an hour on the bike because they know that when they get onto the run, they can only really stomach 40. So they're trying to offset it like this. And yeah, I think as we like our understanding of the human body starts to improve as new products come out, I think my guess is that's where we're going to start to continue sort of seeing time come down. But there'll probably be some huge bike innovation now that's going to come out and put egg on my face. But that's my hot tip. Focus on the nutrition, and that's where I think sport's going.
Amazing. That's fascinating. Really, really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. We've noticed a pattern with the adventure sport and endurance athletes we work with, of people being underfueled basically during their training, and then that carries over into their performance. So one thing we've had really good success with is carbohydrate periodization and using like a high, medium, and low traffic light at different times throughout the day, pre and post sessions. And we've been having great results with the Hexis app, which has been really well received by our athletes too. So Simon, before I let you go, what would be your, and it's probably a really hard question for you to answer, but what would be your top takeaway piece of advice for the listeners about how they can become better at Ironman?
So it's make the easy days easy, make the hard days hard. It's that old sort of trope that a lot of us we talk about in endurance sports, but it really is true. Just try to make sure that you are ready for your hard workouts to absolutely kill them. And the other days, you're either doing longer sessions where you're boosting your top end aerobic, well, not your top end aerobic, but you're extending the duration of your longer sessions, your longer, easier sessions, or you are doing something that is really, really difficult. You really are pushing yourself really hard. Try to avoid, I mean, there is a time and a place for sitting in that grey, comfortably hard area, but try not to spend too much time there. Another thing to say is that this may sound harsh, but nobody owes you an Ironman finish. Some people sort of have it in their head that if they pay the money, if they get the best bike, if they get the best wetsuit, that they deserve that, they want to like buy their way to success, and it doesn't work like that. One of the other reasons I think it's so appealing to corporate athletes is one of the areas in life where you can't buy success. Yes, you can buy a bit of extra speed on the bike, but try to stay humble and just realize that you are going out to do something incredibly difficult. Less than 0.1% of the world population has crossed an Ironman finish line. You are gunning for something really, really, really hard. And it's like somebody who did really well in their GCSEs, but by the time they get to university, they're getting thirds because they just kind of coasted through it. And then suddenly things start getting tough and they don't actually know how to work hard because they're used to things kind of happening to them. So please just, it's going to involve a lot of time. It's going to involve a lot of hard work. And you've got to be prepared to do that hard work. Don't burn your bridges in your training. So whether that is just taking everything on the American Express and worrying about it later, okay? Bad idea. The kind of the £6,000 wheels that you're looking at probably aren't going to save you more than a handful of minutes, okay? Be smart with where it is that you're spending your money. If you have if you have another half, if you have family members supporting you, sorry, that's my dog. Look after them. Don't burn those bridges. Don't ignore them. Don't sort of start to resent them, because you're going to need them. When you finish that race, when you cross that finish line and it's all over, there's going to be a big void in your life. And who's going to be there to fill that for you? So it really is important. And this is going to sound like a bit of self-promotion, maybe it is, but get a coach. If you really want to, if you really want to enjoy the process, if you really want to excel, if you don't have loads of time to spend doing all of the research, wasting on workouts that are inefficient, if you really want to maximize all of your time, if you want to have that accountability, if you want to go as fast as you can, get some outside help. Now, it doesn't have to be someone like me. It could be that you want to go down, there's a triathlon club near you, go down to the pool and somebody has a look at your swim stroke. It could be that you engage a nutritionist, but getting some outside help, getting some outside support is the way to do it. And if you look at the cost of doing an Ironman, by the time that you take into account your entry fees, your flights, your hotels, the wetsuit, the bike, the swimming pool fees, everything that's involved in it, it's not the cheapest sport. I mean, you can do it on a budget if you want to do a local race to you and you want to do it on a secondhand road bike, fair enough. But a lot of people they want to do it properly. If you're then not prepared to pay a coach £1,500 to almost guarantee you a finish, I tend to think of Ironman coaching as being a bit like insurance. If you already spent £6,000 on the race, you might as well spend another grand and a half on a coach to actually make sure you finish the thing. Having someone to guide you through your training, having someone to push you when you need to be pushed, having someone there to hold you back when you're going a little bit too hard. I spend more time trying to throttle athletes back, trying to get them to slow down and do less than I do actually really pushing them brutally hard. That's the way to do it. I've never had someone fail to finish an Ironman because they turn up, they did the training. There's always a bit of luck there with mechanicals and the like, but people, they turn up on the finish line and they're ready and in the best shape reasonably they can be. They don't panic when they get unwell. They have that bit of guidance. And that when you're taking on something that is as difficult and as demanding as an Ironman, that's worth its weight in gold.
Some brilliant golden nuggets there for us to finish the conversation on. Thank you so much. They're really, really useful insights. For those listening who would like to know more about you, you might possibly have some follow-up questions and want to get in touch. Yep. What's the best way they can do that?
You can visit my website, which is Phazon Triathlon, Phazon. If I send that over to you, you can stick that in the show notes. And if somebody wants to email me, just stick an email, simon@phazontriathlon.com. You can find me on most social media platforms as well if you want to send me a direct message there.
Simon, just to finish by saying thank you so much for your time and sharing so much valuable knowledge with us all. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone listening has too. Yeah, all the best for the rest of 2024, and thanks again.
Been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the 46th episode. We hope you enjoyed the show. It would really help us out if you could please leave a rating and or review on whatever platform you're currently listening on. Is there someone you know who would benefit from hearing what you've just heard? Then share the love by sending them a link. Be sure to check out our website extremesportsperformance.com that has details about how to stay updated to receive our weekly blog emails, our free education resources, our training programs and nutrition plans, our coaching packages, our professional performance services, our online store, and how to get in touch if you have any questions. Join our growing communities on LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, X and YouTube. Links to these can be found at the bottom of all of our web pages and via any search engine. Until next time, release those limits and go well.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.